Barry Van Patten, welcome to the Real Build. How you doing today?
Bill, thanks, brother. I'm doing great, man. How are you doing?
Good, good. You and I have been talking about getting you on the show. We talk real estate back and forth with each other quite a bit. Being in the areas that we are in, they're very popular areas and have been for the last couple of years, obviously because of COVID and everybody moving. And you're in Arizona, me being in Florida, very popular retirement areas as well. So, going to dive into some real estate talk today with you. I'm excited to have you on. But before we get into it, I always like to ask, who is Barry Van Patten?
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, it's good to always talk with you over the Instagram or text or whatever. And definitely, it's been fun these last couple of years just to everybody flock into Florida or flock into Arizona, and so it's good to do this. Who is Barry Van Patten? Well, so first, I mean, just like you, man, I'm a child of God, and I'm a humble guy. I was born and raised here in Scottsdale, and so 46 years here, pretty much here. I tried to escape for a little bit, but boys here, grandparents were here. So my grandparents were both World War II guys. One was a tank battalion commander, kind of came through Poland. The other one was in the Navy, and he actually, kind of lucked out because he was in Pearl Harbor and ended up leaving. But great parents growing up, great childhood. Here. Sports guy, love sports. I mean, it's what I did every day after school. I just came home, it was wiffle ball, it was football, it was, man, I just love being active. And yeah, so life was great. Both lived here. One of my grandparents had a summer home up in Wisconsin, and like, my life was perfect and great. And then all of a sudden one day when I was 13, my mom wanted to get a divorce from my dad, and so it was like, bam. So I just bring that up. Who was Barry Van Patten? Well, that shaped me big time at 13, right? I mean, I went from knowing, thinking I knew what love was and what life was all about, and to me, life was awesome. I mean, it was perfect, and all of a sudden, bam! Like, my loving parents. So anyway, so obviously, for a few years, just kind of went through some, downs and ups, and trying to figure that all out, and took a little bit, but out of it, it came. A lot of I think my big heart kind of came out of that, right? Like, so I ended up kind of fast forwarding through college. I ended up coaching soccer. So I was a baseball soccer guy, but I threw my shoulder out. So it kind of forced me down the soccer path, played in college a bit. And in that, I ended up coaching one of the assistant coaches on my college team. He, we just talked shop all the time, and, the guy that was the coach at that time at the college he wasn't the best with the kids. And so I just kind of thought, man, I could do this. A lot of these kids needed a lot more than what they were maybe getting, and coach can have a big impact, right? And so the assistant coach and I really gelled, and so he asked me to be his assistant. Long story short, ended up becoming the head coach at community college here, both men and women. And then starting and running some youth clubs. So at the same time, I was like 25, and I was, running 6 assistant coaches and 2 programs and 50 kids at the college. And then on the club side, I created a club, and I had a board of directors, and, I had all these kids and parents that, really believe in what we're doing. I started an all girls club, soccer club. So it was the first thing out here in Scottsdale. And, some of our teams were the best in state and all this stuff. And so I just bring that in because, I think out of that divorce situation came, really questioning what's life all about. And, at the end of the day, it's about other people and helping other people and loving other people. And somehow or another, my parents got it wrong, right? But I'm glad that they did. At the end of the day, I'm glad that they did, because it helped make me better, and made me a better dad now, right? So now, dad, 2 kids, love my life, will be 20 years, wife 20 years in June 1st. And yeah, man, so that's the gist of it. I just, I love other people. I love pouring into other people and helping people, and it's part of the reason why I'm in Arete with you. And so that's where I'm now, real estate, and enjoy doing the same, helping people, just in a different way.
I can relate. I'm with you in so many aspects, and I think that's why you and I have kept in touch, and with Instagram and text and messaging each other and so on too, because I relate to you quite a bit. And I would touching on like the divorce factor too. And I was actually talking to my fiance about this morning on a walk. It's just crazy how things happen in life and they just shape you into or and pull you into that direction where you're supposed to be in certain aspects too. And I was saying, with like me being a Christian and man of God too, and how God kind of led me to the path with her and where I am today. Because if I would have not have went through the last relationship I was in, and I personally got a divorce and went through that and made that decision too, I don't regret anything that I went through. And I was telling her that too. I was like, yeah, it sucked, and things in life suck sometimes, but it's God's way of kind of pulling you into that right way, that right path where you're supposed to be. And that's with her. And that's the thing. Cause without her, I wouldn't even be where I am today as far as business and all that. And she's molded me and changed me in a lot of different ways. I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you on this podcast either. It's just crazy how things work. So, going at 13 at such a young age, it's hard. I'm sure it was very, very hard, obviously, for you to even realize what was truly going on. But over the years, it's kind of molded you into who you are and made you have a lot of more respect for your wife because you saw that, you went through it. And obviously, 20 years later, you guys are happily married. Congrats on that, too. And it's just like with sports too. Like you had an injury in college. I had an injury in college. I played college football, and I kind of ended my career with a shoulder injury and many other injuries I'm feeling today. Let's put it that way, thanks to 12 years of the sport. But I won't get too detailed into that. But it led me to a different path, and it took me down a different road that if I stuck to it, I probably would have never become who I am in this moment today. So I commend you on all the things that you did too. Let's go into your kind of background. Obviously you're doing luxury real estate, you're killing it, you're doing amazing things in the space too. Why real estate? I see it was kind of a family business too. um why'd you choose to go into that direction?
Yeah, so being here in Scottsdale, Phoenix area. So I mentioned both my grandparents lived here. So when I was a kid, we would. Uh, so I was born in Scottsdale. My grandparents were both in Arcadia. So we would drive, from Scottsdale through Paradise Valley into Arcadia, they're all super, super great areas, like beautiful Paradise Valley. If you look, and I don't know what or your listeners know about Paradise Valley, but you look it up and look at some of the homes, just beautiful, and it sits between three different mountain ranges. And so there was just like this, every Christmas Eve I drive back home, there was just like this majesty about just the beauty of it, and the homes and the lights up on the mountain. And my grandparents, one of my grandparents lived up on the south side of Camelback Mountain, and they also owned a property up in northern Wisconsin on a lake. So I think that some of it came from, and then the others had a super awesome, a little bit more modest of a house, but like nonetheless, like all the properties, it was a place for, that family time and friends. And there's just, like, that's just me, man. I love my family. I love people. And I love what a house can provide, like different, different rooms can provide a certain, a certain feel for that certain moment, or the party or whatever. And so there was some of that, and the other part of it too is just seeing the city grow. I mean, it's been a huge expansion on all sides. And so when I was a coach, it was kind of, I was pretty good at it. I mean, to this day, I think I still have the coaching record at that college. And a lot of my teams in the club and I'm a humble guy, but at the same time, like, I was good at it, right? Like, and I breathed it. I mean, I'd be in the showers thinking about, like, how can I help this player get better at that, and what does this team need? And how do we win this game? And, how do I need to develop? That kid was constant. And so kind of going back, 2002, right about when I started coaching a little bit more full time, I thought, maybe I want to get in real estate. And so I went to my father, who at the time was in the fitness business for like 35 years. And I said, well, I think we should get in real estate. I think real estate is gonna like blow up. And he looked at me, he's like, what are you talking about, son? I've been in the fitness business for 30 years, real estate. And so anyways, it was actually my brother and I went to him. And so that idea fizzled. I actually ended up getting into the mortgage business, which is another story, but it was a crazy day at the time. Like, the stated and the liar loans, I only lasted like 9 months because I could tell there was something wrong with that industry before it ended up blowing up. So I would just ended up full-time coaching, and I loved it. And so I thought about going that route, college coach, or, maybe like I have a couple of buddies that coach in MLS, and, maybe usually what those guys do is all their buddies end up going with them. So I thought about that or college, but I was like, I don't really want to, ship my kids all around the country with me. I wanted them to know the grandparents. And so my wife and I are like, well, what do I want to do? And so I actually tried corporate America. I'm like, this isn't for me. And so anyways, long story short, I said, I think I should probably go back and do that real estate thing I wanted to do back in 2002. And so at this time, my father actually, even though he said, what are you talking about? 4 years later in 2006, he ended up getting into real estate. And because of his business acumen, even though he was in his late 50s, like right away, he ended up partnering with one of the top guys out here, and top guy in Arizona, actually, luxury guy, Wall Street Journal, like top, whatever he was at the time, I don't remember. But that was great for him because he got to learn really quick. It was great for the other guy because he got my dad's business acumen and, his all the good traits he has. And then for me, I got to see him do well in a down market. And, so I'd go spend time with him, and, there's a lot of things that I like about what he does. So 2012, now I've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old, and the coaching thing, I've just burned out. I'm done. It's not what I want for my family. And so that's why, a couple other reasons, but that's really how I got into the real estate space. So.
Yeah, and one thing you've said is and you've said it multiple times now, is kind of your love for people. And let's face it, a lot of people get into real estate because the first thing they think of is the money that they're going to make and so on. And I've said this to past guests on the show, and everybody I've had on this show in the space is actually passionate about the space itself. Real estate's not easy, and a lot of people get into it thinking it is an easy paycheck. Especially, I mean, in the recent market we had, yeah, it probably was a little bit easier, especially if you knew somebody looking for a house, which was most people, and it there's a lot to it though. And the way I try and promote myself on the real estate, as a real estate professional, is obviously I have my building background, but I I do enjoy helping people in general too. Yes, the money is good, but I enjoy helping people. And how I can do that is with my building background. I know what goes into a house prior to building. I know what a house should look like when it's constructed, and I know how to deal with the issues after it's constructed as well. So that's how I sell myself as a real estate broker. And I'm very passionate about the industry in general, and it all kind of meshes together. And that's where obviously with you and you being in it, you got into it, I mean, right before the crash too. So in 2006.
But so my father did. I didn't get in until 2013.
Okay, so you were kind of on the ups. That's around when I got in. I think I was 2012, 2013, and that's kind of when things started coming back little by little. And the situations were different. Not as many big homes. We were on the building end. We were building some smaller stuff, and then now we're kind of back into the luxury end, like yourself. But just so the audience knows too, on average, how much volume are you guys doing a year? How many listings are you doing a year? Just so the audience knows.
Yeah, for sure. So interestingly enough, I didn't start with my father, and so we kind of went two different paths. And I think that wanted me to learn it on my own and, figure it all out. So I been on my own. I had another partner, but about a year and a half, 3 months ago, we ended up partnering up. And so 2021, we did 65 million. This year we've done 5, we have 10 in escrow, and we've got 5 listed, one lot listing, 4 listings, 3 of which are under contract. So
Wow. So you're doing pretty good.
yeah, I mean, we do good business, and it's a combination of my dad's been in for a long time, and 8 years is good, but being a native helps. And really, man, it just goes back to just trying to treat people right, like caring about them. So
Yeah, and getting into that a little bit more too. And I always like to discuss this because, like I said, there is a lot of realtors in the market right now. I'm sure in your market too. It's I jokingly say everybody in Florida, when they move here, they get a real estate license. It's one of the first things they do. But there's just more to it. There's the business behind it, and how you conduct your business and how you go about it too. So, uh, let's talk about that a little bit. Why go with Barry and the Van Pattens as their realtor of choice? Why have you earned as much business as you have? What are the things that you are doing to kind of stand out?
I think it goes back to just the golden rule, Bill. Like, how do you want to be treated, and then make sure that you do that, or you do better than what you want to be treated. You go above and beyond. And so I'll answer it in a story. So a month ago, we had a vacation plan we're out visiting my wife's parents close to you, and turns out so we ended up making an offer on a house, and the house ended up getting multiple offers, right? Of course. So the house is listed at like 950. It's in Flagstaff, actually. So it's north of here. I'm not sure if you know where it is, but Flagstaff is a mountain community, pine trees, whatever. So this day, right? So we were the first offer in, but I told the agent, right, you have to be detailed about what it is you're doing, and you have to look forward to what are the potential issues, no matter what, like whatever the situation is, right? So in this case, we knew that there'd probably be multiple offers, and we knew that we needed to make an offer without I didn't want to give my clients money away, even though I assumed there'd be multiple offers, right? At the same time, I didn't want somebody to come in and just take the listing right away with an offer that was way more than my client's offer. So I made the offer. I made it very simple and easy and quick. But I also told the agent, I said, listen, I understand that you're probably going to get more offers, and if you do, I want you to know my clients really love the house, right? So please make sure that you get back to me. And she said she would. She's like, no problem. I appreciate you guys coming in and being the first offer. And so I said, okay, so please make sure, right? Because there's there sometimes agents don't always listen to the things you're saying. So I think I repeated myself like 3 times.
Sometimes,
Yeah, most of the time. My coaching background has been good for other agents sometimes, but anyways, of course they got more offers, right? And so we needed to adjust our offer. And so she called me. I actually missed it because my son he was in urgent care. So it turns out he was sick. We were in urgent care the day before. He got a little, at first worse, but then first better, then he got worse, something with his ear. So we had to take him back to urgent care. Well, urgent care said, you need to take him to the hospital. And so we're like, oh, awesome. And so they said the reason why. We called a doctor friend. The doctor friend's like, yeah, you probably need to go do that. So all the while, I had missed her call. I called her back while my wife's talking to the doctor. I'm pacing around the yard trying to figure out what's going on. She's like, oh, I'm so glad you called me, Barry. We got this awesome offer. I mean, I said, okay, cool. What's your response time? So she told me. I said, okay, cool. We're going to resubmit and offer it. But I said, here are the terms we did. I feel like maybe we need to change it to this. And what do you think? And she kind of hesitantly told me what she thought. And which, again, it's her fiduciary is to the seller. So it's on her, like she should be telling me. I don't understand. Sometimes agents will not tell you what an offer is from somebody else, or something that might help their client. I'm glad she did, because it ended up in the long run helping her client. But anyways, long story. Okay, great. I'm going to have an offer over. I'm going to rewrite the whole offer and get it over to you. Well, my wife's on the phone at the same time with the doctor. She said, we do need to go to the hospital. Okay, awesome. So we go to the hospital, we get checked in. Like, I have my computer, I've got my phone, I made sure it was all charged. I have my charging cords, right? Rush to the hospital, emergency room, had to do that whole thing. And, you know, a series of like mistakes with the nurse, with getting him an IV, and he's yelling and screaming. So he's 10. And I'm still needing to write this offer. So between nurse coming in, I'm typing up the offer. Nurse, you know, like, hey, son, I love you. It's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. It's going to make you tougher, all this stuff. Right. Like, and then I'm boom, 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 doing the offer in the ER room. And then all of a sudden they're like, yeah, so we think he's okay, but he does have an ear infection. We need to have a CT scan done. A CT scan. I'm like, oh my gosh. So get on the call, like, hey, just so you know, offer's almost done. I'll have it over. I'm going to get signature soon, blah, blah, blah. So long story, right? But anyway, so now they're wheeling my son into the get a CT scan. I'm on, you know, my only one of us in there. So the wife goes in there, I'm out, I'm back on the phone. Okay, so here's the deal. This is what the offer is going to be. I just need to get the signatures. I think this will do it. You know, what do you think? She's like, well, yeah, it sounds pretty good. I think so. So then I called the agent, my people, and I said, hey, I think we're going to be good. Like, maybe just type me a quick, like, you know, anyways. So then, long story short, like, right, like, I'm in the hospital while my son is, you know, screaming at the top of his lungs because she missed her vein, or missed his vein, like with the IV, and then he's getting a CT scan. He's stressed about that, and the wife and everything. But at the same time, right, like, even though that's all happening in my life, these people, this is their dream house, man. Like, this is their second house and their dream house. And it's on a golf course. I have to win for them. Like, there's no other choice, right? So I have to find a way to get that done for them. I can't just say, okay, I'll do it in 4 or 5 hours, which unfortunately in this industry, sometimes that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And so number one, I would say, like, you know, I have to treat it like that's me buying that house. And what is it going to take to make that happen? In this case, my client said, that's our dream house. We want the house. Okay, well, if that's the case, then this is what I need to do to make it happen. And then, you know, and then also just getting into the detail of, if they want the house, what do I need to do to make it happen? So I don't know if that story helps, you know, but that's, you know, why us? I mean, I would say why us is because we, you know, number one, we truly care that we'll go to those links to make sure that we do everything we can to win for our clients.
Well, it's a difference maker, and that just proves to you, because not a lot of people, or that just proves about you that not a lot of people too are going to go out of their way. I mean, when their son's in the hospital and try and help a client get something done, you know, and I can relate to you in a lot of ways. I've had many days, especially being in the building world too, and dealing with real estate at the same time, where I'm getting hit from all directions, and it doesn't stop too. And you know, there's a warranty issue, or there's this going on and this going on. But my main obligation is to help every one of those clients, and step back at that time and say, you know what, I can do this, and not have the anxiety and the stress take over and just freak out, because a lot of people would. And this business it does take a lot out of you, especially when you got a lot of different things going on at the same time, which I'm sure you do as well, and inspections and other things and closings and obviously family life too, and so on. It does take a lot out of you. But the guy that's in, or girl that's able to kind of step back and worry about their client and make sure their client is taken care of in the end, and their client gets that dream home like you did, is going to win. That's who's going to win in this business, because there's thousands and thousands of agents out there, but there's only one Barry, there's only one Bill, you know, and there's only one. And we have a different approach where we care. I mean, you can definitely tell, not that all agents don't care. I mean, a lot of them do, but when you have the passion that you do, it's going to stand out, and that's what's going to make you win in this, in a busy market or in a slow market.
Yeah, for sure. And I truly, like, you said earlier, people get into it to make a lot of money, or, whatever they think is going to happen. I mean, I truly, it's not about, I mean, I do miss coaching because I miss at a higher level, right? Like I'm coaching, 30 or 50 college athletes or kids. And then, so like you're more often being able to impact those people's
Hmm.
lives. But when we closed that deal in Flagstaff, and that guy gave me, he's like bear hugging me, right? Saying, man, you did it, you won. And that's just like, that feeling that's why I do what I do. So, yeah, it's good. Those are cool feelings. So.
It's the best feeling. I mean, I just had it. I sold a condo. It took me 3 times to sell this condo. I've never had to sell something 3 times.
Mm.
And the guy and his wife at the end, they were both like, "We are so grateful for you." They said it every time I sold it. But at the end, it was like at the third time, they're just like, "Bill, all the stuff you did, we're so grateful for you, and you have our recommendation." And he kept trying to give me other business and so on too. The first time it fell through because they thought they could rent it at a shorter term, and so they backed out with an inspection item. And then the second time, uh, thought we had it secure, and the condo next door was on the market on Zillow for sale by owner, and she said they saw that and they bought that instead and backed out because they didn't do the deposit, so they were able to get out of it. Third time was the charm. Family came in, loved it. Both couples hit it off too, and it just ended up being even better on the third time than all the time. So,
Right.
long story short, you fight for your clients. You're going to do good in this business. That's what it's all about. And there's some realtors that over fight for their clients too. And then, on my end, I got to be like, just chill a little bit. I'm going to take care of it. You don't need to be that nitpicky about stuff, but uh,
Right.
it's all about taking care of them. So one thing I want to get into obviously is this market, and it's obviously been crazy the last 2 years, especially in Florida and where you're at in Arizona too. Where are we heading in your opinion? And this is just obviously for the listener opinion, Barry's opinion only. So don't take it to heart here, but where do you think we're heading? I have my opinions on where I think we're heading. I see it on the building end and the real estate end, both sides. Where are you seeing things going?
Yeah, I mean, like, if only we had a crystal ball, like, who would have thought this market would have out
That's
of,
usually my answer too, but
well, out of April 2020, when I mean, I had somebody almost want to cancel, and now I'm like, listen, guys, are you in real estate for the short term? Or are you in real estate for the long term? Like, well, we're in real estate for the long term. I said, well, then if it goes bad, then you're going to be fine. Yeah, I think they're happy that they listened to that, right?
Mhm.
Advice. Now their house is probably darn near close to double what it was. But I mean, I think in the short term, human behavior is hard, right? People have all, I mean, they always ask, that's what they ask, like, hey,
Yeah.
how's real estate? Whether it was last year or like 7 years ago, so the question is like, well, what do you hear about how real estate is? And so, and I say that because real estate all over the country is different. So what is it like in Scottsdale or Paradise Valley versus, what is it, like over, in Florida or New York? It's completely different, right? So I can only really speak to what's happening out here. I'm sure that some of the macro stuff is similar when it comes to mortgage rates and human behavior around that. I think for people that need a loan, in the short term, they're probably going to be maybe not wanting to do something, like if they own a house and they've got something at 2.9% and they were thinking about moving, well, maybe now they won't because the purchasing power just went down. And now it's like, well, now we can only get into this house versus that house. I think some of that will in the short term happen. um I've always said, even going back years, is like, I think the real estate market here in Scottsdale Paradise Valley is good, aside from, like, I don't, if World War III happens, of course everything's off the table, and then also if the stock market crashes, then that will, but the fundamentals of what's happening here in Scottsdale Paradise Valley are very good. Not only is there a ton of tech and manufacturing and all kinds of different commercial projects still going up around the city, um, we're as it is right now, like 10 years behind on building what the need is. So,
Hmm.
now that said, right, like if the stock market keeps dropping, I mean, that's going to affect a lot of people, which, business owners, and then business owners are going to have to lay off employees. And so that affects a lot of stuff. But, if things kind of normalize, get back to normal, I think what will happen is people will just get used to rates now being at 5 or 6 or whatever, which, like I think back to 2001, 2002, when we bought our first house, 7% was a great rate at the time, right? So it's perspective of where you're at, and then things get normalized, and then people just have to live their lives. So they're gonna buy and sell. But luxury is a little bit different, than mid-level pricing or lower end pricing. I think luxury will continue to be pretty strong. It might edge out a percentage of the people that maybe 10 to 15% of the people are, yeah, maybe we'll just wait, see what happens in the next couple of years. But I think by and large, if people are wanting to say migrate and they're selling something in California and moving to Arizona, it doesn't really affect them. Same thing if they're coming from New York and moving down to Florida, probably doesn't really affect them that much. They're still probably able to buy something nicer than and bigger than what they had where they were. So I think my guess it'll probably slow a little bit and then just kind of come back to a more balanced market, which in reality will be good for everybody. It'll be good for buyers, good for sellers. It'll be good for, well, it won't be as good for sellers, but it will be, it'll be good for agents and all the industry all around that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you on that too. That's kind of my take on it. Is I think we're kind of going back to a more balanced type market where things are going to sit on the market a little bit longer. They're not going to sell overnight like we were seeing. You're not going to have as many bidding wars, I don't think, anymore either. Prices are going to come down maybe a little bit. I don't think they're going to drastically drop like like the last real estate crash. I don't think so. If people are kind of waiting on the sidelines for that to happen, I don't see it happening because there's not really a scenario for that to happen. Unless we go to war, World War III, like you said, then yeah, things have changed because the whole entire world's going to change. But if that doesn't happen, then I do see things. We're probably if we're not already in a recession, we're heading there. We're at the beginning of it, I think, as well, and other different aspects of the economy, and so that'll slow things as well. You brought up interest rates at 7%. People forget they were at 24 and plus percent at one point. And
Right.
I think that's what my dad said at one time too. He was 24%. Yeah, it's things change, things fluctuate. We all knew kind of that this market wasn't going to stay the way it was forever. Even though I heard realtors telling people this is just the new norm. That realtor line right there, and I would just kind of smile at them and say, yeah, if you want to think that, but what goes up must come down at some point, stabilize a little bit, and then it'll eventually go back up. So I agree with you a lot on that. So advice to real estate agents, obviously you've been in the business for a while now. If the market does go down, what do they do? What do you do? You talked about your dad during the last recession. He kind of just kept going, didn't really affect him as much. What did he do? Obviously having connections, contacts is important too, but what for the newer agents out there, I got realtors that listen to this, obviously this is more customer based, but I'm curious too, how are you helping customers in that type of market as well, and what should a realtor do?
Well, from a realtor, I mean, I do think there'll probably be a little bit of an exodus out of the business, if things slow down, just because people aren't going to be able. And, at the end of the day, unfortunately, I think sometimes like the part the part-time or the super part-time realtors aren't doing their clients justice, right? Because they
Yeah.
just don't do enough business to know what's happening. And so I think that will be a good thing.
Mhm.
You know, for everybody else, I think it will just be the normal, right? Like who wins? Well, it's the old 80-20 rule. And so what are you doing to differentiate yourself and to win? And when I say win, I just mean stay in business, or, you know, like help people with what they're doing. And that's just, you know, making sure that you're talking to more people and helping more people with whatever it is. And, you know, we do that a lot just through living our lives. So, you know, it's my kids' sports, and I'm there and I can help people however I can, or just friends of the kids, or if it's you know, my Bible study guys, or, you know, just living my life. Like, what do I want to do? And so for other agents, I would say live your life. You know, like if you want to join a triathlon club, do that. And then some of those people in the triathlon club are going to end up, you know, gelling with you or liking you. And so they, you know, when it comes time to buy or sell something, they're going to ask you if they,
Mhm.
you know, assuming you've done enough business and, you know, what. Yeah, so I think that, and then just more of it, which I think at the end of the day, Bill, too, is a good thing. Like in those times, I don't think people should be retracting. They should get out there and do more, right? Because sitting at home and worrying about whether or not you're going to make any money doesn't help. Go live your life, and just, that's, you know, be a good person, and, you know, out of that will come business.
I think that's the one big downfall a lot of people have is they do sit back and kind of struggle with what's to come. You know, they kind of just overthink it, or they just it sticks with them. They turn the news on. Obviously, it's doom and gloom nonstop on every news channel there is, and it freaks people out, but that stops them from producing. I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I can't even turn on
Yeah,
the news because my fiance yells at me when I do, because she can see it changes my mindset too, and it really messes with me, and I get off my game. I don't produce. I'm not doing the content I should be, or doing my edits or my podcast. You know, it just messes with you too. And you start thinking, it's like, okay, what's the point if the market's going to go down? You know, I'm going to do all this stuff and spend all these hours. How's it going to make a difference if nobody's buying houses? And then you start thinking that too. And it's doom and gloom, but it's not true. When people are running and doing that, you should be going all in. We're taught that in Arete,
right.
and you know, the consistency is key. So when people are not doing it as much and you're still doing it, guess who they're going to see? Because people are still on social media, they're still doing those things, they, you know, that or they're still on social media watching content and
Yeah,
absorbing content and so on too. It's just, so if you're one of the only ones doing it, guess who's going to win when they are ready, or, you know, if they do decide during the downturn to buy stuff, because there's going to be buyers during the downturn too. Maybe
for sure.
switch your target market to investors, because you know they're all going to be circling just like
Yeah.
sharks, like right now they are. So you know, they're all sitting there like, is this market going to go down? You know, I'm ready to buy. So they all got cash ready from what they made in the last year over Bitcoin and all that. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah, no, that's a good point too, is just to also like create a plan. What do you think's going to happen? And maybe have a couple, right? Well, if this happens, then this is my, you know, or just start doing it like that way. You're prepared for either way.
yep. Yeah. I think a lot of people struggle with preparing or kind of shifting, you know, shifting direction too. Like I said, I'm going off personal experience, but I've learned, you know, during these hard times, it is time to go all in. I mean, we're not in hard times yet, but if it does come and it does happen, make that shift, go all in, you know, don't give up too. And that's like with even with new realtors, obviously, that have been getting some business too and some traction, utilize it. You know, like you said, you're still going out there, you're still networking, you're still talking to people, meeting people, getting in front of them. That's the most important thing. You can't just sit and sell real estate, you know, a
Right.
lot, or rely on your Zillow leads and so on. You gotta, and I know realtors too that they just rely on Zillow leads, but what's going to happen when those dry up? You know,
Yeah.
what are you going to do? You don't
Yeah.
have any content, you don't have anything else you're doing, so where are you going to go? That's the thing. It's like you can't rely on one source. You got to do other things.
Yeah, definitely. And you know, and I mean, honestly, like if we do rely on one thing, referrals are the best source of business you can get, right? Because it's a happy person and you did well for them. And that's the main source of where we get our business, is if we don't already know them, it's a referral from someone else. But I did hear, one in a mastermind group, I had one guy was like, listen, I just throw all kinds of lines in and see what ends up working. And then the ones that don't work, I pull that line out and I put more bait on a line in the similar thing. I'm like, oh, that's pretty good, right? But if you're only on one, then the chance of maybe not getting some of the fish is greater than if you have multiple lines in. So
Agreed, 100%. Because it's just, if you got to keep going, that's the thing. So, and we shall see with the economy and everything where things go. Obviously, you're in a cash heavy market, so am I. Too. We'll see how it affects. With the stock market the way it is, it's been kind of a bloodbath lately. So, should things are getting interesting. So we shall see. Hopefully things end up for the best for everybody. Pray for that, but you got to be ready if it's not. So. One thing I always pull something off of websites too. I saw this on your website. Van Patten Luxury Group strives to provide the most professional, informative, loyal, and dedicated personal service in the real estate industry. Explain this a little bit.
Well, I mean, I guess first and foremost, are you a pro or are you part-time, right? Like when I was a coach, even though I didn't coach in Major League Soccer or the Premier League, I was a pro, I was a professional. People paid me to do what I was doing. So therefore I owed them a duty to be my best, right? And a lot of times these were, like I said, they were the top athletes in the state, or whatever. So in the similar regard, like our job is to be professional first and foremost. Well, what a pro, like to be the best in any pro environment, right? Like you have to do that, right? So, well, what does that entail? Well, it entails making sure that people know what's happening in the market, right? So you have to inform them of all the details in regards to, if somebody's selling a house and they say, well, what do you think the value of the house is? Well, there's lots of, you could just say, well, here's the comps and it's this, right? Well, that's true, but that house that's on the comp, house number one, we'll call it, faced this direction and it was a 2-story, not a 1-story. And, and it didn't, the finishes were dated or whatever. Right. So like the informative is also just getting detailed in what you're informing them with. Right. And so, and also like, how long did it take to sell this one versus that one? What are the other listings listed for? If you price it here, you might be just helping that person sell their house, and really just making sure you dive in deep with them so that because at the end of the day, we represent work for our clients. And so our job is to inform them so that they can tell us which way they want to move. Right. And that's their call so that we can follow the direction. So, loyal, meaning just like, listen, my job is I owe fiduciary to them. So that's it. I don't owe it to anyone else. Right. Now, can the way I talk to another agent help keep the deal together? 100%.
Okay.
And, but I still owe my loyalty to that client. Right. And so sometimes agents don't put themselves, sometimes maybe they put themselves first, or, and that's not okay. Yeah, the dedicated personal service. I mean, whatever it is, right? So obviously that means clients. So in our space, we'll do, I mean, Bill, right? Like even especially because you're a builder, but we're not just negotiating contracts and driving around in nice cars. I mean, oftentimes I'm like cleaning up dirty toilets, or, like picking up the dead hummingbird that, flew into the window, or getting the dog poop off, like there's so many things that we do, right? If our clients are out of town, which a lot of times they are, it means going by and checking on their house and making sure that's okay. And, or, sometimes it's even like, hey, somebody closes on their house and then all of a sudden this other issue comes in, which the inspection didn't call out and nobody saw with their eyes or whatever. And sometimes it just means like, hey, we're going to take care of that. Right. I mean, that's like dedication to your client. And so it's going above and beyond just buying and selling someone a house. Like a relationship doesn't end right there.
Yeah, I like that's the thing too. Like you said, the one biggest thing I got out of that is obviously putting the client first, and a lot of realtors do not do that. They kind of put themselves first, and that's a problem too because obviously even with dealing with other realtors too, you want that transaction as smooth as possible because if it's a rocky transaction on the other side, you're dealing with your clients. You're gonna have to face them and you're gonna have to give them the bad news of why it's rocky and so on too. So whenever I do a transaction, I try and have the best relationship I possibly can with the other agent. And I want to have a good working relationship with them no matter what. There's been some rocky ones, and I've had to keep the deal together. And I've also had to keep myself together to where I didn't, have a meltdown on them, explode
Right.
on them. Let's put it that way, because there's some very aggravating ones that should not be in the business. Let's put it that way, that don't have a clue. But our job obviously is to get the deal done, is in the best, most timely manner for our client, like you said, and put them first too. And sometimes it does take doing those things that most agents don't do, like you said, the dog poop and the hummingbirds and cleaning a toilet or having to do or unclog a toilet. I think I've had to do that before, or fix something for them, or get a handyman over there to do something, or let somebody else in, and kind of go out of your way to do it when you have something else going on. You still just drop it and go over there too, and make sure everything is perfect for the time when they get into that house too. That's the separation factor right there, is just doing those things, going above and beyond, like you said. It's so important. And a lot of the agents, and especially the ones listening to the show, if you're not going above and beyond and doing the extra things like Barry just said, you're going to lose out to somebody that will, hands down, for
Yeah,
sure.
or you're not going to be in the business very long.
Yeah.
Reality. And again, it just goes back to thinking about, sometimes people, it's like the entitlement world, right? Nobody's entitled to anything. And if you just go back to, what would I want from my agent, then all your questions are answered right there.
Yeah, exactly. One thing I wanted to ask you, obviously you're in the luxury world. How do you become a luxury agent? What are the things that you're doing to be a luxury agent too? Because yeah, I sell a lot of high end stuff. I've sold some, uh, you know, lower end stuff too, under 1 million. You're selling a lot of stuff over $1 million. How do you get to that level? I mean, you're selling 3, 4, $6 million stuff too. What's somebody do to get to that level? What are some of the extra things that you're doing? You mentioned a few just there. Let's go deeper into that.
Yeah, well, and we'll do it. I mean, we help anyone, right? So, I mean, I've sold $130,000 condos, right? But luxury is a different animal.
Hmm.
Mainly just think about the clientele's different, right? So either, I mean, some of our clients have bought and sold dozens of homes or, more. And, oftentimes they're very business savvy. So, sometimes in, the lower market, it's just as simple as like taking some mediocre pictures. I don't do this. Like if I get a mid-level home, I mean, they still get the best photographer we have and a video and the whole deal, right? But sometimes agents like taking pictures on their cell phone and putting a lockbox on the house. Well, yeah, it's not going to work in
Looks like
luxury.
a flip phone picture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, so it means number one, you have to be okay with understanding that there's a lot more time that goes into the luxury space. And that's of course meaning with the buyer or the seller, but it also means with understanding those markets, and like the different luxury areas, right? So like Silverleaf versus Paradise Valley, and one section of Paradise Valley versus Silverleaf or whatnot. Like there's just different things that go each to them, and sometimes you can't answer those. Like you have to have the information from your client to tell you, well, which one might be a better fit for you, but you have to have a general idea. But on top of that, like if somebody wants to get into luxury, some people tell you that the brokerage doesn't matter. I think it absolutely does matter, and the reason it matters is not just because of the colors on the sign or the name, but it's the people that are in the brokerage that are doing business. And it's because it's like the old, you are who you hang around with, right? Like you're going to learn from being around people that are in that space doing business, helping their clients. And so people say, well, it doesn't matter, you can be in any brokerage. Well, I mean, you can. Like for you, it probably works because you guys are a builder and you've got a niche and people trust you, and so it can't help. Like there's some guys and girls that maybe have a niche in a certain area, but if you're getting into luxury, like as a new agent, the only way you're going to learn is being around it, right? And going on home tours and going to new developments and learn about what it is, or meeting with custom builders, or just talking to agents. So I think that the big thing is like you have to get in and cut your teeth in that space, because you'll get chewed up really quick if you don't know what you're doing. And the last thing you want to do, and this happens like just the other day, somebody sent me an off market listing in PV where they were going to sell the house for like, I can't remember, it was like $1.5 million more than they bought it for like 2 weeks ago. And I'm like, how can I justify it to my client? You have to give me something, man. Like, he's like, Barry, he goes, the listing agent totally missed the pricing on that house. Like they just totally messed up. And so, I mean, can you imagine missing the pricing and your client losing out on 500 or $1 million? I mean,
that's insane.
Yeah. And that person probably hasn't been in luxury very long. I didn't look them up, but that was my guess. They probably haven't sold. And that's another problem, right? Like if an agent's used to selling a $500,000 house, it's not that they can't sell a $4 million house. They can, but you have to really make sure that you understand, you have to really make sure you crunch the numbers, and that you take a lot of time. And maybe that even means like calling other brokers and saying, hey, Bill, I haven't sold in Silverleaf before, or, whatever the area is. And so I'm kind of thinking in this price, like, what do you think about that? Would you bring your clients to that house for that price? And then they're going to say, well, no, it's overpriced. They're going to be like, yeah, I would. I mean, actually, I'll buy the house, right? Because it's underpriced. So that's something I'd say to people as well.
I agree with you. It's even on a buyer's side too, having somebody that knows the luxury market, and has been dealing in it and selling, high end. Like, yeah, you probably saw the video. I sold that house that was a teardown for $3 million. Well, every time I see the client, he jokes and he's like, yeah, obviously we overpaid for that one. And I'm just like, you didn't though, because if you do the actual math, by the time you put a new house on that lot, direct access, southern exposure on that bay, you're going to get your money out of it, if not, or guarantee probably more, and especially in the market the way it's been. And I was like, you already in a winning situation. Yeah, you spent a high amount on a house that you tore down, but you're putting something new there, and the demand for new with a view like you have is huge right now, because there's nothing else like it out there. So your premium you're going to get it's going to be worth it. And who knows after 2 years when the house is done where we'll be, but right now it was a good investment. So it goes back to, just giving help. Clients hire you for your help. And I'm not that type of broker that sells them anything and everything they send across my desk. I have a guy I'm dealing with now. I've been working with him for I want to say a year now. He told me the other day he should have bought when we first talked about it, but he didn't pull the trigger. This was actually, it's probably been over 2 years now. And he was joking with me. He's like, "Yeah, should have bought that first one, huh?" And I was like, "Yeah, things are a little higher now." So, but he's sending me stuff still, and I tell him yay or nay all the time. And he sent me one year. It's a lot of people don't know because a lot of agents wouldn't tell him. It's near a sewage plant on Marco, and it's a street. It's called Rose Court. A lot of agents don't explain this to people, but I personally do because I have a conscience that, he sends me a house for 1.4 million. I go, you will never get your money out of that house.
Right.
The reason they're selling now is because, or sold this past season, is because people were buying anything and everything and agents were putting them on it. I won't let you buy that because in a year from now, 2 years, if this market slows down, you will be stuck with that house and it will be worth a lot less. So do not do it. And if you want to buy there and you don't mind the old sewage plant right behind your house, wait, because those houses are going to go way down in value
Right.
and you'll be able to buy it for a lot cheaper. So he's like, "Oh man, I appreciate you and your honesty and all that." Because a typical, I don't want to keep saying typical because there's a lot of good agents out there, but uh, some agents would be just say, "No, it's a great buy. You want to buy, jump on that right away." I can't personally do that, and that's a difference maker too. Having a conscience as an
Totally.
agent.
Yeah, 100%, man. 100%.
So I want to wrap this up because I know you're busy too. I want to get into some personal questions. One of the questions I always ask is, what about you personally? You have built an amazing company and brand that continues to grow each and every day. What lessons have you learned throughout your journey that we should all apply to our own business or our own lives that can help us grow?
Yeah. Well, first, I mean, I think business wise, I think the biggest thing is that, like, is that you always need to be learning, right? And this goes back to when I was a coach. A lot of coaches were good coaches, but they never got any better. The reason they didn't get any better is they never objectively thought, like, how can I be better, right? Like, what could I have done different? Um, how can I get to the next level, right? Like, what is that person doing that I'm not doing? And so, but at the same time, I think that sometimes people are learning too much, right? They're not saying, well, I have everything inside of me to do something. And so there's a lot of people that just end up plateauing because they're always trying to every single day learn, so they're never doing. But if you're constantly doing and then also on the hook and saying, hey, you need to keep learning, like, then that will continue to make you better, for your people. I mean, with life, man, I mean, I just think that, like, there's, when you look ahead and you say, well, I'll be 75 or 80 or 90 when I die. Well, what do you want that to look like? Who do you want to be surrounded by? And try and make that a conscious thing, like, every day. I mean, unfortunately, especially now in the Instagram world, everybody wants to be, to have a Ferrari and, whatever it is, right? Like, but that stuff's all going to come and go. I mean, at the end of the day, like, we love our, people around us, our parents and our family and our great friends and people that pour into our lives, right? Like, so what do you want that to look like? And then every day work towards that. That's what I try and do. It's really one of the frustrating things being in the real estate space is just, all the me, look at me, and like you said, there are a lot of great people in this industry that do a lot of wonderful things for people, and I've met a lot of cool people. But in general, whether it's real estate or not, I just think that, like, having that goal of what you want your life to look like how are you going to help other people? And I think, most people, yeah, it's great to have a big check come in, but then that fades, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what does it feel like when you're at the football game with your son, you pushed your appointment back and he scores a touchdown and you're there for it, right? Like, that stuff's better. So I just think, make sure that you really are intentional with what do you want your life to look like. Yeah, man, I mean, I think those are probably two of the big things for me.
I like that because I mean, what if it was taken away from you, and you don't have real estate and the money coming in? Are you going to be happy? Or do you have that family, like you said? Do you have those moments and everything too? Because it's not just all about, business and real estate. We can get very absorbed in it too, but having that mindset like you have to where it's not all about that. It is about having a good family, a good wife, a good, kids are good, everything's good. That's what's important. So always get a
Yeah,
good answer on that one.
yeah. No, I mean, and if it's friends and, and of course, like, you have to, people say, well, yeah, Barry, but my role is to take care of them, and 100% it is, right? Like, so yeah, if you don't have it all set up, right, well, you're gonna have to make sacrifices, but like be mindful of when you're gonna make sacrifices to go and do it. Like, don't have it be at the expense of your children. If you can figure out another way to do whatever your business is, right? And
Mhm.
I mean, that's happened to me before, and I try not to make that happen. So
Next question. How I like to wrap up this show is most people talk about your past. Let's hear about your future. So, where will we see Barry in the next 10, 15, 20 years from now? Who will you be?
yeah, I better have an answer after that. I mean, I'll be more of me, right? Like, I think I'll be pouring into more people. I can, right? Like, I love helping people, but I'm a pretty humble dude, so I'm not. Some people love to help people, and they're just constantly at it, right? Like, so you can go about that different ways, but I don't, from a business standpoint, I'll be doing it probably maybe at a larger scale. Maybe I'll be helping agents help their people. We have a small team, right? But like, maybe the team will be probably the team will be bigger. My kids, we'll see what they want to do, right? But if I would love to be in business with them, we just started a little business with them, and so
Nice.
I want them to kind of learn what that looks like, and so maybe it will be helping them,
What's
right?
the
And then
business?
well, it's just getting launched, but it has to do with my shirt here and your flag above your head. It's called Constitution Kids.
I was actually going to tell you I like that shirt. So,
Oh, thanks, Ben. Yeah, so it's called Constitution Kids, and it'll basically be them, creating a little business, and a little apparel / like information business about the value of the
awesome.
Constitution and patriotism and stuff like that. But outside of that, I also, where will I be? I'll also be, trying to pour more into, like, I lead some Bible studies, and the growth I see and the guys that are in that, they'll come at all different, guys that are kind of new to their faith and guys that are more mature in their faith, but the growth and the bonding that happens from that is unbelievable. And I really love, helping guys in their faith, and, getting people to, I shouldn't say getting people get themselves to where they want to go, but just being a like a conduit for people to grow. So, both, I want to just do at a bigger scale. And, my kids are at the age now, 12 and 10, where I was very mindful of when they were like 3 to, now making sure that I'm all around, right? That's what they wanted to be with daddy. Well, now it's starting to get where, like, they want to be more with their friends, right? So it gives me a little bit more of an opportunity to be able to go do those things on a Wednesday night or Saturday morning or whatnot. But yeah, those are big things. I'd say just bigger in business, helping other people grow, and as well in faith, and also with my family, just making sure I pour into them, and so that they can also be that person to help make our communities better, man.
Love it. Love it. And last question, because I know you got to get going here. What exactly do people need to look for when buying or selling a home? And why should they choose Barry as their realtor of choice?
Nice. Well, so buying, location, location, location. That's the big thing. I mean, people will get excited about a house and they don't care if it's on the street, and they want to sell like 5 years later and they can't sell their house, like in a bad market, in a balanced market. So I just still see it, and I'll tell people, like, listen, if you want to buy that house, that's fine, but recognize this or this, right? And And then selling wise, obviously it's been easy these last couple of years, but in a more balanced market, I think that people just need to, most people do in luxury, maybe not all the time, but like, are you keeping updated on your house? Are you, is that leaky, whatever fixed? And, did you fix the drywall thing? And is it, like all those things add up to people. So if you want to sell and you want to get to top dollar, those things need to all be taken care of. And then I would say just competitively price your house. So in a balanced market, people overprice their house because everyone thinks their house is worth more than it actually is, right? And ends up happening is it sits and then another house sells and then they have to do a price drop. So what happens in a balanced market, if they do that, is they end up selling it for less than they probably would have otherwise, because the more days on market you are, the less the value, the less the perceived value of that house is to the buyer. And it also, then the buyer has a little bit more negotiating room. So as the market turns, I'd say make sure your agent has had success and credibility, and then listen to what competitively positioning your house is within the market. And yeah, why should they choose us, man? I mean, everything we just talked about. And I'd say we do care. I mean, we want to do it better for our clients and our friends and our referrals than the next person does. We'll always be honest with people. I mean, what's the issue with that house? Well, that house, the issue is this. It's not no issues with that house. Like, we're completely honest of, hey, well, these bedrooms need to be remodeled. It's going to cost 500 grand, or whatever the situation is. Like, we're honest, and we do want to win for our clients, and we want to do it better than we do it for ourselves. So
love it. Barry, brother, this has been awesome having you on. I knew this would be a good show. It's always a good conversation with you, even in text messages and DMs too. We're always catching up. It was great to catch up with you too, and virtually right now. One of these days we'll get together in person here. I've always wanted to come out to Arizona. I haven't been out there yet, so when I go out there, I'm going to come visit you for sure. But yeah, this has been awesome. I appreciate your time. Last thing, where can people find and connect with you?
Instagram at Barry Van Patten and the number 2, or our website's Van Patten Lecture Group. Those are probably the two main. We've got Facebook and whatever, but those two are the main places. So
awesome, brother. I really do appreciate your time today. This was awesome.
Likewise, Bill. It's good talking with you, man. Appreciate you.
Yeah, of course. And for all you that listen, you know the routine. Like, comment, share this. 5-star reviews only allowed. And I will see you guys on the next one.